We're live. Here we are.
Welcome back to Everything EOS, the longest running EOS podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us for this week in EOSIO. We got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about: Block.One voting, the ENS Marketplace, all kinds of stuff going on that we'll dive into in just a sec. But before we do, remember, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you have not already, and leave a comment in the live chat box saying where you're coming from if you're tuning in live. And of course, before we get started, I do need to mention that nothing Zack and I say should ever be interpreted as legal, financial, tax, professional, or any other kind of advice. You should never take advice online from people for what to do.
What happens if you take advice from strangers on the internet?
You'll get wrecked.
Always get wrecked. Do the opposite of what people on the internet say. So that's our disclaimer. Let's just jump right into this. We have a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. The EOS Name Service Marketplace launched.
Yeah, so the beta is finally out, which means you can now buy and sell EOS account names that have already been purchased. And these include 12 character account names and custom names that you get on EOS Name Service right now. But check it out. It's the beta. We're looking for feedback, both good and bad. So head on over to eosnameservice.io/marketplace and let us know what you guys think. It's been cool to see all the names flood in. A lot of people are going and listing names for sale. So there's some cool names that are up there now.
So I guess the other internal stuff we have going on, if you're watching this, the bottom scroller must have hit the gray one. Cypherglass DSP services are now available on the dapp network.
Yeah, so we have our first DSP service up and running, which is IPFS or VRAM. So we're working on getting the Moonlighting contract synced now to be one of their backup DSPs, which is super exciting. Big shout out to the Moonlighting team and Rahman over there for putting us in touch and making that happen. But this is kind of our soft launch. We're working on a new website that should be out in the next week or so. And that will really showcase everything that we're planning with the DSP and kind of our plans there. But this is our sort of initial soft launch so that if you're out there, maybe you're building a dapp right now or you have a dapp that's live already and you want to use our VRAM services either as your backup DSP or your main DSP, reach out to us. You can email me, rob@cypherglass.com, and I'll walk you through the process. It's pretty cool.
Well, welcome to the dapp network officially. I'm excited to see what you guys can do there. I know that you've always talked about it on the show. I mean, you have weekly calls with a lot of different projects. If you've mentioned Ethereum projects before wanting to come over to EOS, and now as a dapp service provider, you'll be able to facilitate that even more smoothly, especially as things like Liquid Link get more fleshed out as we move forward.
Absolutely. And speaking of projects moving from Ethereum to EOS, it looked like David from Chintai made a really cool announcement. He said, we plan to utilize the dapp network for all Chintai's cross-chain NFT and other token leasing services long-term. And this is aside from the dapp leasing market in testing on Kylan right now that is coming. And this is the exciting part. He says, we have already commenced commercial discussions with a range of Ethereum-based gaming companies about partnerships only now possible with Liquid Link. And Liquid Link, of course, allows you to offload a lot of the processing costs from Ethereum over onto the EOS mainnet using the dapp network. So really exciting to see, these people kind of join forces, and maybe we won't be so tribal in like, oh, we hate Ethereum, oh, we hate EOS, like on the other side. Maybe we can all kind of work together and actually launch these dapps and make them more scalable.
What the best part about being multi-block, like seeing this interoperable, like multi-chain future. This is actually the first anyone's going to be hearing about this because our LiquidApps team, we haven't even tweeted this out yet. But I just wanted to let everyone know watching that we will be hosting the LiquidApps team and Block.Start along with Node.One, the Korean block producer. We will be hosting an Eos Community Meetup in South Korea during Blockchain Week. So we're really excited about this. We have Benny, the CEO of LiquidApps. He'll be talking. Rahman Binlish from Block.Start, which is the company that onboarded the 750,000 users for Moonlighting. And then we have another really cool guest, Brittany Kaiser. I'm not even sure how to say her name. I'm sorry, Brittany, if you're watching this. But she, have you seen The Great Hack documentary on Netflix, Rob?
No, not yet, but I have seen the trailer and it's on my list, so it's one I got to watch.
So that's kind of what she's known for. She was an executive at Cambridge Analytica when all of the stuff with Facebook went down. She kind of blew the whistle on them, and now she's like fighting for like owning your own data on social media. And her topic of discussion at the event is actually data sovereignty and the potential of voice.com. So I'm super excited for her. I mean, I'm excited for Ramon and Benny also, but I kind of know a lot of what they're going to say because I have these conversations every day. But it's going to be exciting. So we're going to be in Korea all week. That's in 2 weeks from now, Korean Blockchain Week. There's a lot of cool guests there. It's all blockchains. Like Vitalik's going to be there, Nick Szabo, Larry Sanger from Wikipedia, Gavin Wood,
nice.
Chainlink, Thomas Lee, all of these people are going to be there. So I'm really excited to basically be at a major conference. I was at Consensus earlier this year, and this is the South Korean equivalent of that in Seoul. So I'm excited for that.
That's awesome. And speaking of other events, obviously there's a lot of good stuff going on in Korea, but coming up very soon, next month in October is actually the EOS Community Conference, the annual one down in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I will be there along with Adriana, one of our partners at CipherClass as well. So it should be an awesome time. And if you're going to be there down in Rio, let me know and we can meet up at one of the conference events. It should be pretty cool and looks like a good time. So you'll be on one side of the world. I'll be on the totally opposite one.
Man, Han must be busy, man. From Node One, the Korean block booster. So they were the ones that hosted the original community conference at the mainnet launch like a little over a year ago now. And I think they're also one of the gold or diamond, I don't know the levels of sponsors and organizers for the Rio conference too. So they really got their work cut out for them. I'll put the if you're going to be in Seoul, I'll put the link to the RSVP page in the description after the show. But if you're going to be there, please reach out. I'd like to connect, especially with any of the Korean block producers, BitHum, and any of those like 5 or 6 BPs that the BitHum proxy voted for recently, which we'll get into in a little bit here.
Somebody is knocking on my door, so if you want to intro the next topic, I can still hear you, and I'll be right back.
Oh man, you're throwing me off here. Wow, I was not expecting this. Damn, Rob. All right, so I'm just gonna wait for Rob here, and this is.
Okay, false alarm.
Oh my goodness, dude! You threw me off. It was like silence. Like this. Now that we're doing these live streams, I can't even like cut this out.
I got you. No, we're all good. So you want to talk about that article recently about LiquidApps that came out?
Yeah. So we're gonna get into the EOS FUD article on CoinDesk, which we'll get into in a little bit, and we're agreeable with some of it. But I didn't realize this, but a few days before the EOS article came out, there was another CoinDesk article about LiquidApps, and it was actually the same author as.
Wow!
So I think he was like doubling down on the EOS community. So like while he was like interviewing EOS people about EOS, he was also asking them about like dapp network and LiquidApps, and like the article is pretty favorable, I'd say. Did you read the CoinDesk article?
I think. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that people were really asking, 6 months ago when LiquidApps, or 7 months ago now, however long it's been, at the beginning of this year, when the dapp network was kind of announced, people were like, okay, well, what are the cost savings? Like, can you put this in a number? And obviously we heard that Karma case study that they could potentially save, I believe, $800 a week. It takes their cost from $800 a week down to 80 cents. And now we have another really awesome statistic that is if Moonlighting wanted to do all of their transactions directly on the EOS mainnet without the assistance of the dapp network, they would pay almost $2,000 per day for their 750,000 users. And thanks to the dapp network, they bring that down from $2,000 per day to $10 per day. So pretty wild. I mean, that cost savings is unreal. And you can see that over time, as that service continues to grow and they hit 1 million users and 2 million users, that the savings will obviously be even bigger. So it's pretty exciting to see that in action and see it actually working. And
then I had it up on the screen, but I thought it was cool that the article got Ivan on Tech's attention again. It seems like this is like the second or third time Ivan's like done something with us. It's pretty cool that he's paying attention. I know We played that one clip a few weeks ago where he admitted that he occasionally watches everything EOS. I'm sure leading up, I'm positive that leading up to B1 June, that almost everyone in the industry is watching everything EOS. We had like triple the traffic back then, and he was one of them.
Absolutely, yeah. It's cool. I mean, he has that EOS dev course now, and like you said, he's obviously following up on things, and for him to notice the dapp network as well is obviously super exciting. So shout out to Ivan if you're watching. We watch you as well, so it's a mutually beneficial relationship here.
So I guess we can get into the touch on the CoinDesk article, because then we'll get into what we really want to talk about, and that's what Brendan Bloomer said about the voting stuff. But let's just...
So there was a CoinDesk article came out called "Everyone's Worst Fears About EOS Are Proving True," and there were definitely some inaccuracies in the article. Some things were just totally false, but it basically was a sort of one-sided story about, hey, here are all the bad things that's happened. Some of them have been resolved, some of them haven't. And for the most part, I thought it was relatively accurate. Like I said, there were some inaccuracies, but it definitely felt one-sided. But it was interesting to see then Brendan kind of come out and tweet about governance and tease this thing that I know a lot of people are tuning in for, which is that Block.One may be planning to vote according to his tweet. Do you want to read his tweet, or should I?
I have the tweet up on the screen, but we kind of brushed over the article. I just want to back up a little bit to the CoinDesk article. Even though we said this EOS FUD and we said it was one-sided, the fact of the matter is that some of it was truthful, and the truth hurts sometimes. But like, nothing's broken. Like, things are getting fixed, and I think just based on the conversations I had with some of the people quoted, and then some of the people who talked to do you remember this guy's name? Something Brady, the author. I just had it up on the screen. Brady Dale. So there are some people that talk to Brady Dale, and like, a journalist tries to be friendly with you. Like, a lot of the, I think Jesta from Greymass said that like the quotes that they took were like in conversation. Like, they might have did like an interview where he like knew like he was like on the record and stuff. But then because you're just like BS and being friends, and he was trying. I guess if he was being honest, he's being honest. But the article was very brutally honest, I guess, but it was one-sided, and it almost made it seem like things weren't being worked on. They made it sound like EOS New York's not working on a proposal. They make it look like the whole network's broke. The security's never an issue right now, and we're working on things. But let's get into the Brendan Bloomer part. I've been rambling too long.
Yeah.
Why don't you read the quote?
So Brendan came out with a tweet, obviously a while ago. I don't even know if that was this year or the end of last year, where Brendan basically tweeted that, hey, once Block.One is the minority, meaning that their total 100 million tokens represents the minority of total tokens voted on the network, that they would consider voting. So he tweeted kind of a follow-up to that, which was nice to see, not just a totally new statement, but actually a follow-up to a previous statement. He said, Block.One always stated that they would not consider voting until they became the clear minority of voting tokens. B1 now owns less than 1/3 the amount of tokens that are voting for top EOS VPs. EOS voting participation has never been higher. So it's really interesting because he's not explicitly saying, hey, we're going to vote. He's just saying, hey, remember that thing I said back then? It's happened now. Now we're the clear minority. So now, ostensibly, they could vote if they're still following that same kind of path of being the minority of tokens.
I had it up on the screen. I'm going to actually read the Brendan Bloomer quote. So this is from like January 12th, I think, and it was on Telegram. And he said, this is from Brendan Bloomer, although we have chosen to abstain from voting until we represent a smaller percentage of voter engagement to ensure adequate decentralization, we have continued to stimulate community discussion on important topics and have communicated that we may vote in the future. So that was it. Like, he didn't really talk about it. Like, Dan's talked about voting since then, but not Brendan.
Right.
And then Brendan came out here and he said this, but like you mentioned, he didn't make any promises. He didn't say they will vote, but he reminded everyone that as upset as people are about the centralization of votes into like the upper, like I'd say 30 block producers, the good news is that there's never been more tokens voting in the entire history of the EOS blockchain. And that's Absolutely. The positive thing to take home from this. I'm going to pull up this stat from EOS Authority if you want to kind of go through some of the highlights. Like, or I guess I can. I'm the one reading it here. Over 400 million EOS voting for the very first time.
Yeah.
So I couldn't find a website that had like a graph of like the history of how the votes have gone up, but I do know they went up because Colin Talks Crypto made a tweet yesterday about the Brendan Bloomer tweet about the voting, and he said there was like 380 million tokens voting, and then already by the very next day we're up to 404 million tokens voting. So I'm not a mathematician here, Rob, but if Block.One voted 100 million votes, what percentage of the total voting power would they have?
I guess that would be what, 25% of the total voting power, or then including theirs, it would be 20.
20%.
So definitely the minority for sure. And if you look at the current rankings right now in terms of the 1 through 30 BPs, if Block.One didn't vote for any block producers above the number 30 slot, they actually wouldn't be able to move 31 or below into any producing slots in the top 21. So it really is a strong argument for them, I think, from a minority perspective, for them to vote, especially considering that they can't really change who is in the top 21. So depending on your perspective, that may be a good thing, that may be a bad thing, but it is a fact nonetheless right now with the current voting distribution.
I'm going to pull up the rankings real quick and kind of explain a little bit about what you were talking about. So what Rob was saying here with the votes is like you have the cutoff here of the top 21 is 257 million votes. So it depends on who Block.One would vote for too. We're talking here assuming as if they're going to vote for the block producers that launched the mainnet, the ones that our proxy votes for. There is no guarantee that they would vote for those, but let's just say that they would. If someone like EOS New York, who is one of the highest ranked, or EOS Cafe Block 2, 103 million votes, it would take them up to 203 million. If they had 203 million votes, that would only bump EOS Cafe from number 31 to number 27. Yeah. So 100 million votes is only going to move a block producer 3 positions. But what it would do is we go. What's happening here is I'm scrolling through. The paid positions are getting cut off at like number 70 right now. Wasn't it like number 90 back in the day? Yeah,
I believe it capped at like 90 or 92 or something like that. But essentially, because there are so many votes at the top of the stack, the way that vote pay is calculated on the network is based on the percentage of total votes that you have voted to you. And because of that, they're basically draining all of the money out of the top, and a lot of the BPs at the bottom are getting cut off because of that. And what's super interesting about it is also that even in these standby BPs that are outside of the top 21 or even outside of the top 30, a lot of them are these quote unquote sock puppet BPs that don't have a website, they don't have probably any infrastructure to back them. And it seems like they're really using that extra EOS that they're making from the standby BPs to sort of subsidize some of the costs of these vote buying programs at the top. So it's really wild to see. So that's one thing that obviously Block.One could do that I know you were mentioning before this call. They could sort of bump out a lot of those sock puppet BPs and keep some of the real BPs that we know actually have infrastructure in the game. But who knows how much EOS those standby BPs have either. I mean, they could have another 100 million that they then throw back to their sock puppets. It'll be really interesting to watch.
I have up on the screen, Rob, I shared it on your end too, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. But there's a couple of BPs that popped up. I'm just going to click a random one. EOS Rainbow. They're number 55 here with 55 million votes. I'm going to click into their account. Their account, this is different. This is different than Blocks.io. I was looking at Block. Oh, here it is. It was created on Token Pocket on August 18th, 2019. So this freaking BP, I've never heard of it. They don't even upload a logo. And they have 55 million votes. They're sitting in a higher block producer position than people like EOSphere. I don't even have it. Generos. All these good BPs that are sitting outside of paid positions. Liquid EOS. And then we have EOS Rainbow BP sitting here. What's their website? They have 840. It doesn't. That's not a real website. You click their Twitter. Yeah, it's twitter.com. Like they uploaded a bp.json just to piss me off. Like they should have just not even put anything here rather than putting twitter.com as their Twitter handle. It's just, it's garbage.
It's really pretty wild. And that's why comments that, when Dan comes out and says, oh, everything's operating as planned or working correctly, I think it rubs people the wrong way, myself included, because it's like, is this operating correctly? Or is the system designed to incentivize people to have these standby BPs just draining value and not adding any value back into the system? I personally don't think so, but that's kind of the benefit of these systems is we can all have different opinions and ultimately reach consensus. But it is really wild to see, and they're obviously not the only one. We have EcoBoost, Star Galaxy, Validator, EOS, all of these sock puppet BPs that don't
if
have
you're
logos,
going through a block
websites.
producer, if you see this generic EOS logo, like click it and dig in a little bit, and you're gonna be kind of disappointed. So it's the concentration at the top, I think, is fine. I mean, they own all those tokens, they're voting for themselves, that's fine. But the problem with the rewards are that the BPs paying out the rewards are paying them out of the sock puppets block rewards here. So if Block.One were to vote for like a globally distributed group of BPs that included some of the Genesis BPs, 100 million votes could make all of the difference in the world for these BPs just outside the paid position. So someone like Generos or EOS Sphere or EOS Node 1, they would all of a sudden have 145 million votes. And then the people who would be on the outside looking in would actually be these sock puppet BPs that were launched less than a month ago, who are collecting block rewards and paying every single penny of them out because they're sock puppets.
Absolutely. And it's really wild. I mean, I think there are a couple of reasons why, just to touch on the recent tweets from Dan and Brendan about like operating correctly or operating as intended. I think there are a couple of reasons why that might be. I think, and this is just me personally speculating, obviously. One of them, I think, could be legal posturing. You know, Bitcoin and Ethereum both have gotten this kind of, they've sort of been explicitly cleared as being not securities. So if you compare the governance structure as, oh, it's just inflation, you know, inflation from the general token supply paid to the people who are actually processing transactions, maybe it's legal posturing. But on the other hand, I think we also have to look at where their incentives are aligned. If you go back to a very early version of the Block.One website, when you look at their investors, people like Bitfinex are the investors in Block.One. So of course, you know, it makes sense that Brendan, as a CEO, doing his job as the CEO of that company, would be protecting their investors, who are obviously some of the people that are draining value out of this system. So it's just interesting to sort of remember where the incentives fall for all of the people that are involved in this system these days.
So how do you think that, what timeline horizon do you personally think Block.One will begin voting in?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm not holding my breath for them to vote in the same way that I'm not really holding my breath for that governance proposal to ever come out that they promised.
We've been waiting since January.
Yeah, when it comes to Block.One these days, I'm sort of waiting for things to be released before we speculate on when it will come out, because it seems like it will generally be later than sooner. I know Brendan tweeted something recently about basically regulation was the main thing holding Voice back from doing a full launch. And that doesn't mean that they can't come out with a beta as soon as 1.8 is done that has sort of a fake token with no value and sort of get it out in the wild and start testing it. I think that's totally possible. Excuse me. But I think a lot of these things, it's way better for us to just wait for them to release it than to us just wildly guess, especially since it seems like delays are happening a lot recently.
So basically, don't hold your breath on Block.One pulling everyone out of this yet. But there will be a time when they vote. And whenever they do vote, I have up on the screen like how many votes they have. I'll constantly say 100 million because I don't want to do math, and 100 million is just easier. But Block.One has 90 million tokens staked right now. So if they were to vote today, they would vote with 90 million vote power. And then they have 6.5 million that are liquid. And their liquid tokens are actually their vested tokens because they're on a 10-year vesting schedule. So they can't actually, they could vote with all 100 million tokens, or all 96.5 million tokens right now. But they can only transfer what's vested, which is the 6.5 million tokens they have left after their big RAM purchase that they made in May. So the problem with Block.One voting is that they could only vote for 30 block producers. They couldn't like split up their votes and like say half their votes would vote for this 30 and then their other half would vote for a different 30. They can't do that because they can't transfer 90 million tokens of their balance. That's
right,
like almost 100%, like 90 some percent of it. So I don't know what they're going to do. They could set up a proxy like EOS Rex. The EOS Rex proxy, I think, votes for 50 different BPs, and it has some automated like rotation thing. But what do you think is the best short-term solution? We kind of had a saving grace here. I think is this morning or last night. Did you see someone mentioned in the chat? Did you see the Colin Talks crypto thing that popped up?
Yeah, it looks like an account that I guess had never voted 5 million tokens and proxied it to Colin's proxy. So huge shout out to them. That bumped up our vote pay at CipherClass a little bit by I think like 2 EOS a day or something. But every bit helps for sure, especially now with us and all the other BPs being so low in the rankings.
So the cool thing about the Colin Talks crypto story is that this person, you said it quickly, but they never voted before. Usually whenever we see big movements of tokens, like the Everything EOS proxy, we're up to 1.25 million votes right now, and we've picked up a couple of whales. I hope you're watching. Thank you, whales.
Absolutely, thank you very much.
But one of them who voted for us, for example, was voting for Colin Talks Crypto, another excellent recommended proxy that I would personally feel comfortable voting for if it wasn't voting for our proxy. But like, it was just kind of like a wash. So like, if someone votes for Colin, then they vote for us, like Cypherglass, for example, your position didn't really change. But whenever you pull people out of latency, whenever they're not doing anything, this guy, he has 3 more million liquid EOS tokens also. But this guy who never voted before, because Colin has been very active on social media, he's been very loud, he's been banging his drum on his YouTube channel, he got this guy's attention and he decided, I'm going to vote for the very first time. And then 5 million more votes for Cypherglass, all the other good BPs too, EOS Authority, that the Colin Talks Crypto proxy is voting for. And I pulled it back up on the screen one more time. You'll see like people like Cypherglass, they got 5 million more votes. EOS Argentina. You can kind of see who Colin's voting for based on who all got the 5 million vote bonus today.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, on the topic of how B1 might vote, I think it's totally possible that they set up their own rotating proxy like that to sort of find this creative solution to vote for more than 30 BPs. But I also think it's possible that they kind of phase it in, where say they vote for 10 BPs to start, and then they wait a little while and they vote for 5 or 10 more and sort of build up to 30. And I think there's also, there's sort of an infinite number of potential options here, obviously, but I think another strong option is that they wait for the voice, the actual voice.com to launch. They wait for that platform to come out, and then they have some kind of a unique account voting structure where, let's say 100 million people vote, they use those votes then to delegate out the 100 million EOS that they have on the actual chain, just to sort of separate themselves from the decision-making process. So it'll be really interesting for sure, assuming that they do eventually vote, to see how they end up doing it.
Cool. What if they did vote? How would you feel if they voted for all the exchange BPs and started collecting rewards? Like 5% rewards on 100 million tokens.
Yeah, I don't think that they have enough subsidies.
I don't think their lawyers will let them
to pay that out, but that would be pretty wild. That's
one interesting thing, though. So we've been talking, for weeks now, we've been talking about voting and voting rewards and the discrepancies between inflation rewarding BPs and the non-rewarding BPs. And we talked about 10 minutes ago about how it's very difficult for a BP that doesn't have a second BP, like you don't have a top 21 and then a puppet in the 40s. So it's a lot harder. You have a lot less funds that you have available to distribute. But there are some interesting things I've kind of come across or learned or changed my opinion on over these last few weeks of really diving into these voter rewards, because I do think there's some merit to it. I just think it needs to be done openly and transparently, and maybe on something like a voter exchange. But
yeah, I just totally disagree with that.
I know.
I saw it done openly and transparently on Lisk, and it absolutely destroyed that system. And basically all the value add BPs, much like is happening now, all the value add BPs got pushed out, didn't make any money, stopped investing in the chain, stopped covering content on the chain. Basically all of the sort of community driven aspects just died off. And now Lisk sort of exists, but it's definitely a shell of its former self. And I don't know of any developers even considering it as an option to build on.
So one thing that's stood out for me, I know you're completely against this, but I do want to hear your opinion on this, because I don't think we've ever talked about this, is so the very last paid BP right now is number 69. It is Super One, and they're earning 112 EOS per day, and they have 48.5 million votes. If you owned 1 million tokens, so you're a whale, but you're not like the biggest of whales, but you're a pretty damn big whale. If you had 1 million tokens and you staked to like a Stardios or a Nudex and you earn 4 or 5%, you're able to get the same inflation rewards as the very last paid position of a block producer just by owning 1 million tokens. So who's to say the person with 1 million tokens isn't like a good whale, like a block producer, like one of our Genesis block producers that might be a whale? If they would just instead of being a block producer and to collect rewards, if they would just stake to one of these proxies and earn the same amount of rewards using these inflation payouts. Like, how do you feel about that? Because that's the one thing I can't like argue against myself on, is anyone could earn rewards from the network and then reinvest it back. My
main feeling there is that I think the math has to be off there, because how can, if it takes 50 million votes to get them in that position, how can, excuse me, 150th of that still get you the same amount in rewards? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did the math. I think whenever I figured this out, it was just 5% of a million. So however many tokens that would have been, and then divided by 365. So I get the daily reward. I could touch on this again offline, but I got that idea of that because Brendan's been kind of talking about the reward. So it's weird because it's almost like there's a disconnect. Like, I don't know if Dan is on the same page as Brendan whenever it comes to the rewards.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Sometimes they have sort of competing tweets and different set of ideologies, but I think the issue here is not, I'm not in favor of putting in unenforceable rules that can't be enforced. I'm more in favor of changing the actual incentives to change the behavior, because you're not going to force people to change their behavior in an open system like this.
Yeah, the argument against this is and it's going on in the chat. Let me pull the chat up on the screen. The only reason these BPs are able to pay more inflation than they're actually earning is because of all the vote trading. I don't know if like Stardios and Nudex and the proxies like that, I don't know if they would be able to offer the same 4 or 5% APRs if they didn't have those extra block producers in the lower positions getting paid.
Absolutely not. I mean, the beauty of the blockchain is definitely that everything's on chain and can be tracked, and you can see where a lot of those movements happen. But for sure, the reason why those sock puppets exist is so that they can pay out those rates. It's kind of like subsidizing their main business there.
Yeah. So and the more tokens that vote, also those sock puppets will earn less unless their votes are equally going up. So I'm just trying to keep an open mind about it. I know you're like a hardliner in one direction, and then like Ash and Zane at EOS Radio, they're like hardliners on the other side, and I like you both, so I like try to listen to everything and try to form my own opinion on this, and I'm curious to see where things go. Do you have any final stories or warnings before we move on from voter rewards and voting in general and Block.One and all this?
Yeah, I mean, my main thing is that I just really hope we don't turn into Lisk 2.0, because right now we're sort of following down that same path, and I'm hoping that we have some correction, whether it's a total incentive model change like EOS New York is sort of proposing and talking about, and hopefully we'll have more public details on soon, or it's something else entirely. But right now we're really following in the footsteps of Lisk from a BP incentivization and cartelization standpoint. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen is basically my closing statements here. But the good thing for sure right now is that we haven't seen any evidence of them using their power right now, this quote unquote cartel using their power to censor transactions or sort of bring a security risk to the chain. So right now the chain seems just as secure as it was in the past, if not more secure, because now there are more votes for those top 21 BPs. So that's definitely sort of the silver lining on the dark cloud. But it'll be interesting to see, continue following it over the coming weeks and months, especially after 1.8, and just see how it all works out.
Yes, sir. So I guess I thought I saw something in the chat. I guess moving on to the last topic. So we have an update that kind of flew under the radar, and I think it flew under the radar because whenever Rami tweeted it out from the Scatter team that the thumbnail didn't load and no one like retweeted it and liked it, but it's actually really big news. Let me pull it up on the screen here.
Yeah.
Scatter Embed. So
yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it, but I'm excited because the Chrome extension is coming back from the Scatter team, and it's happening through something that they just released a blog article on 2 or 3 days ago called Scatter Embed. And what it is it's one code base, and it's going to work across desktop, their upcoming mobile, and their reboot of their Chrome extension, so that like if they update the code on one of those items, it updates on all of them. That's why they had to discontinue the Chrome extension before, is because they're kind of like a pretty bootstrapped team, and that's why they had to launch the block producer recently, and they're still not in a paid position, which is upsetting to me. So I highly recommend anyone watching this vote for Scatter somehow. Vote for Call and Talks Crypto, vote for Everything EOS, IWAD, or just vote for them directly. But Scatter's doing a lot of work here. They released this, and one of the features of it is that it auto updates. Rob, do you want to kind of explain what you said before we started recording about what you thought was going on with this update?
Yeah, so at first I thought I read auto update with a wallet and was like, whoa, I don't know about that. Like, I don't want my wallet to just auto update. I think it's kind of a security concern. But what you explained to me makes a lot of sense, that it would only be one component of this wallet that could actually auto update, which seems like the UI side, the side that you see, and that's where a lot of the bugs come from. And I guess, would it be another component that actually handles, key storage and key signing that would not be able to be auto updated?
Yeah, so basically they split up the code so that all of the like encryption and security and like signature, like the cryptographic signatures, that's all one code base. And then the code base that handles like the UX UI, it's all web based. So it's all coming from like a server. And the front end interface and the user interact, like UX UI, that's where a lot of the bugs happen. So like whenever they'll release like a quick update, it's usually a bug in the UX UI. Right. So now with this scatter embed, if it's a bug like that, it's just going to auto update. You won't even have to download anything. You won't even know that it'll update. But it's not a security thing because they can't update and change certain aspects. The stuff that lives on your local machine is like the encryption and the security stuff. So if they release like a security bug fix, then you would have to download the update. But I'm just super excited mostly about the Chrome extension, because the Chrome extension was all we had originally, and then they discontinued it. And I think for like months there were people still like using the discontinued Chrome extension. It was so insecure. I know people that are still using it. I mean, the security. Actually, I don't want to speak on the security for. I don't want to give anybody bad security advice, but I know people that still use the Chrome extension just because they don't want to update, or it's more convenient than having the desktop version. So I'm super excited as well, especially running things like EOS name service to say, hey, you can still use the extension, just update to this one. So it should be awesome, and I think it's probably one of their highly requested things to bring back. I don't know. Are Chromebooks popular? Because in this article we mentioned specifically Chromebooks, but I don't actually think that many people use them. For crypto, at least. Yeah,
I don't know. I'm pretty sure Chromebooks are just restricted to using.
Yeah, they're just like bare bones. Right? Yeah, they're just like bare bones, like laptops, like $150.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool that now they could support that by bringing that back as well. So even if it's only a few people that use it, it's awesome that there's just more places that people can access EOS apps.
So, Rob, we have one more topic. Yeah, and it's a very, very important topic. Out of this is the most important topic that we are going to discuss today, and this is the 1.8 upgrade happening on Monday.
It's finally here. We've been waiting for it for months. Since Block.One really announced this update, we had the 2.0 announcement at B1 June, and then 1.8 was kind of this looming thing of like, okay, when is this going to happen? And a huge shout out to the BPs that sort of put the line in the sand, said, hey, September 23rd is the day. And now I believe all of the block producer nodes have actually already upgraded to 1.8.3, Cypherglass included in that as well. All of our nodes are upgraded and ready to go. So come Monday, we're going to flip that switch. I believe it's at 1300 UTC, which is 1 p.m. UTC time. That switch will be flipped, and the EOS mainnet should be upgraded to 1.8. It's pretty exciting.
It's exciting. So we gotta talk about it because everyone's speculating on it. What do you think is going to happen with voice? I know it's not going to. I don't think it'll launch at the same time. But do you think there'll be an announcement? Anything?
I have two sort of potential paths in my mind, and obviously it could be one of an infinite number of potential realities, but I think there are two most likely scenarios in my mind. One is that we don't hear anything, and that it's just sort of this open question for a while. I think the second is actually that the beta launches. I think it's totally possible that the beta comes out. They can sort of get around all of the regulatory requirements, and obviously I'm not a lawyer, so maybe they can't, but in my mind, I think they can by not having the actual token there. Maybe they just show that your balance is increasing to sort of test that out, but obviously the token won't have any value at that point. It's just the beta, just a placeholder token, and I think that would really sort of calm a lot of people down and say, okay, look, the product is actually built. We're not just selling you vaporware. It's here. It works. You saw the demo at B1 June. Now you can actually use it for yourself and start giving them feedback. Because I think, with a product launch this big, with such big goals of overtaking Facebook and Twitter and all these centralized social media platforms, the more feedback that they can get from users that are actually going to use this thing, the better the product is going to be when they go ahead and push that launch button once they have regulatory approval. So I'm hoping the beta comes out. We'll see. But what are your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen?
I don't. If there's a lot of FUD, like if people are like really disappointed and like really saying like, oh, I was expecting voice, I think Brendan will probably tweet something out to calm people down again, like he usually does. I don't think we're gonna get a beta release. I'd be super happy if we get a blog article that just says like we're shooting for Q1 2020, whatever it is. Like that's kind of all I'm expecting. But
right.
one thing that has me excited about 1.8 is that B1's been super active with getting the message out. So I have up on the screen a message from the main EOS Telegram from Serge Medellin. He's head of developer relations at Block.One. If you've been to any of the hackathons, you've seen this guy before. He was spamming out the link that Block.One put in their document. It goes to a documentation page that Block.One has, where it's basically just like consensus protocol update process. It's like a step-by-step on exactly how to upgrade, because this is the most complex upgrade. It's a consensus protocol upgrade. It's different than any other upgrade we've done before. Anyone running a full node has to upgrade. So it's more than just block producers. It's anyone running a full node. You kind of want to explain what that means, Rob?
So there are some dapps, for example, Dice, that run their own full node that sort of verifies transactions. It's the way that they kind of broadcast transactions through this node to the actual block production nodes. So dapps that have their own nodes will have to upgrade. Obviously, Graymass and their history API will have to upgrade. I believe that's already done. And if you go to eosnetworkmonitor.io, and I think you can see this on eosauthority.com as well, you can see the version number. So you can go through and see that all of BPs in the top 21 have upgraded to at least 1.8.1, most on 1.8.3. And then sort of down the list, you can see a lot of BPs in there have upgraded to 1.8 as well. There are a couple in the standby, mostly in unpaid positions, as you would expect, that haven't upgraded yet, but that shouldn't impact the upgrade at all.
Yeah, there's definitely 15 out of 21 is basically, I don't have it up on the screen. Are you talking about like the go no go page?
I'm just looking at eosnetworkmonitor.io where it has the version number there, but according to that,
I thought I heard something else.
Okay, no. According to that, every single BP, at least in the top 21, has already upgraded to all of their nodes to 1.8. So we should be good to go. It's super exciting. And if you guys are interested in Bitcoin and all, Bakkt is launching as well. So overall, it should be a relatively historic day in crypto. Physically settled Bitcoin futures are coming. Yeah,
I've been trying to connect those two, not because I think they have anything to do with each other, but it's just exciting times. When I was putting together the notes today, I was all excited about everything else we're going to talk about. I forgot about Bakkt, man. That launches Monday.
Oh, absolutely.
Physically settled Bitcoin.
Definitely. It's the first physically settled Bitcoin futures contract, which means at the end, when you got to pay out the other party, you don't just give them cash, you give them actual Bitcoin, which should help, add liquidity to the market. It should help us find a better price for Bitcoin. It'd be really interesting, but there's a lot of sort of mimetic energy centered around Monday in the cryptoverse. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens both with the EOS upgrade and with the Bakkt launch. Should be a really cool week next week for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I just, going back to that tweet from Serge, you've always been a bit of a mainnet maximalist, Rob, and we're always like proponents of the mainnet. Not that there's anything wrong with the sister chains, but a lot of the sister chains upgraded to 1.8 a while ago.
Yeah, well, and that was cool to see.
Block.One wasn't spamming the chats up until the mainnet upgrade. It's like nothing else mattered. This is the focus of Block.One. I mean, they're very much mainnet focused.
It seems to be for sure based on the fact that they're going to deploy voice on the EOS mainnet. Obviously, it seems like their focus. Of course, they're just publishing EOSIO open source software and everybody can use it. But when it comes to using an implementation of it, it seems like the EOS mainnet is their choice. So that's good to see. But obviously, a huge shout out to those chains. I know Wax was one of them that was able to launch or upgrade to 1.8 successfully. So it's cool to sort of see those people doing it ahead of time and gives us more data for the actual launch as well.
All right. And so, since I called you out as a mainnet maximalist, what is your favorite sister chain or fork at the moment?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would, if I had to pick, I would probably say OrChain, which is one I don't think a lot of people have heard of, but it powers OrID and some of the components that they're using. And obviously that has been a massive help in onboarding people onto the EOS mainnet. So probably my favorite one right now. And from a business perspective, when it comes to me advising businesses like Dmail, I'm very much pro sidechain because it's just more potential clients that you can use for that business. So Dmail even is a block producer on Links chain. They've launched on Telos as well, I believe. So I'm a big fan of it from a business perspective. But when it comes to our philosophy at Cypherglass and where we want to produce, the EOS mainnet is for sure still that spot right now. And the dapp network as well, which sort of links together pretty well and fulfills that vision.
I brought this up because another fork came to my attention that I kind of forgot about for a while, and that was Ultra. It's like almost like a Steam like gaming platform. They just released a blog article. I don't have it queued up or anything, but I think it's ultra.io. I'm excited to learn more about them. Let me say that. I don't know enough about them to get too excited, but their entire team is like I don't want to misquote anything, but like Microsoft, like Google type people, like top like 10 Fortune 10 companies, tech companies. So I'm excited to see that one, and obviously Wax too. And a lot of it has to do with like the pedigrees. I like to follow the talent a lot of times whenever I try to assess a project that I don't know a lot about yet. Always follow the talent. Like that's how I ended up with LiquidApps. I saw Tal Muscal, who's like just like a legend, man. And then I look at a team like Wax with OP Skins. Like this team has done it before. They've got like multi-million-dollar revenue generating business behind this. And then a team like Ultra, where they're all like gaming and tech veterans. So I'm excited for all of them. Though I like Taylor's, I like Warbly, I like even Links Chain. I want to see what they do. It doesn't mean I'm going to invest because I don't give investment advice. And if you follow my investment advice, you'll get wrecked. But I think this is a good spot to close out unless you have anything else here, Rob.
No, that sounds great. Like we said, the big EOSIO 1.8 upgrade is coming to the mainnet on Monday. So the next time you see us, the chain will be upgraded. And we can talk about what that means then. And maybe we'll have that voice announcement. Probably not, but maybe. So
we can make one promise here. Let's make a promise. Yeah. If there is a voice announcement, I don't care what you have on your calendar, Rob. You got to clear your calendar. I'll clear my calendar. We're going to come on live as soon as something's posted about it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
that's a promise to the community.
Absolutely. That sounds good. So I think that's a good spot to close out. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy it. Get out there, get outside, do something. Fall's coming. So while the weather's still good, go outside and enjoy it. But once again, I'm Rob Finch.
And I'm Zack Gall.
And this is everything EOS. Go EOS! See you guys next time.
Smash that thumbs up, leave a comment. Yeah, do it all. See you guys next week with 1.8 and backed.
Oh, yeah.